Hello and welcome. Today we have a very important guest with us, the former CAG Mr. Vinod Rai, whose book Not Just an Accountant has just now released. So thank you for joining DD News and congratulations for your first book.
Thank you very much.
You're an iconic figure who has unearthed so many scams as a CAG in your tenure. My first question to you that what you have not mentioned in the book are the special audit reports on NTRO, RAW and DRDO. What was the reason you have not mentioned these special reports? Because they were very crucial and the audit has actually brought in very important aspects. So what was the reason?
Yeah, see, these special audits that we didn't do them under Article 151 of the Constitution, which means those audits, reports, we are duty bound to place them in Parliament. These were audits of sensitive institutions. So what we did was that these audit reports, after we did the audit, we have shared them with the Prime Minister. And writing about those reports now, number one, I had no access to any document just now. And since there was no information about those reports in public domain, there was no way in which I could write about them. I have written about these 5 so-called case studies because these were all in public domain.
Could you please tell us something about these reports, because what we have gathered is that those were very damaging reports and they needed immediate attention, as you submitted those reports to the government, UPA government during that time. Any action were taken by the government? See,
I am aware of the fact that after we presented those reports, a lot of those recommendations that we had given were being examined for implementation. But by then I demitted office, so I will not be able to tell you what were the actions that were taken, because even if the actions were being taken, it may not have come out into public domain.
What were the findings?
Oh, lots of findings were there, but as I said again, those findings I cannot share with you today. Number one, I'd be recalling them totally from memory.
Were they very damaging?
No, I don't think we can call them very damaging, but they were concerns which needed immediate attention. Okay, but what they were, I really can't recall just now. And in any case, even if I recall them, I can't share them.
Were you stopped at any point of time for not auditing all these 3 institutions because they are concern from the as far as the security is concerned, or
no,
and many classified documents
we
were also
not
involved?
Stopped,
yeah.
But there was some resistance to our auditing the NTRO in the beginning, but we had to establish that an NTRO has to be audited because it's a government department, all government monies are spent in it, and the CAG's constitutional mandate extends to all such government departments. Only after we could successfully establish that point were the records of the NTRO made available to us.
So coming to 2G scam, when this scam was in the limelight and everything was happening, Prime Minister Manmohan Singh said that he did his duty. Do you think he did his duty?
See, it will be very unfair of me to comment upon what the Prime Minister considered his duty or otherwise. All that I have said in the reports that we submitted to government then, to Parliament then, and in my book now, that in the letters of 15 November and 26 December of 2007, the then Telecom Minister did apprise the Prime Minister of the actions that he proposed to take.
So you're very direct in your book. Why couldn't you do the same thing in your CAG report?
Our CAG reports were equally direct. In fact, I based the entire book on CAG reports alone. The only difference is that in a CAG report is a very structured, formal document. There is no way in which anybody can give a personal opinion. This is an entirely different book in which a lot of my personal opinions I have given, and that's why you call it direct.
Do you think that he overlooked the decision, or did he give a blind eye to certain important issues in 2G scams?
Neither. I don't think either of these things will correct. That's why I said we did at that point of time to figure out why, the decisions taken were as they were taken. But we could only conjecture. So it's today by hindsight for us to say what happened in 6 years back and what were the reasons which played upon the Prime Minister's mind to take the decision that he took or not take the decision that he did not take. We'll be only in space of conjecture.
So in the book you have mentioned that there was huge resistance from the JPC for bringing in you in the first meeting that happened, and what do you actually think this JPC setup, which was done by the UP government in 2G scam, was it futile or did it really bear fruits?
No, I don't think I have said that there were resistance to our going and clarifying things to the JPC. In fact, much before the JPC started its meeting, I have written to the chairperson of the JPC saying that if any clarification is required from our side, me and my officers will be only too happy to provide it. And hence we went before 4 JPC meetings to clarify. All that I have written in the book is that there was a lot of debate within the JPC, even before we had entered into the meeting, whether we should be called witnesses or not.
Right, that's
and
where
and I'm happy that they did not call us a witness, because we were not deposing before the JPC. We were volunteering to explain our reports to the JPC. So to that extent, we were of assistance to the JPC.
Do you think the JPC was of any use in 2G scam?
Well, I don't know whether we can say it was of any use or not, but the JPC did debate a large number of issues.
Finally, it went to the Supreme Court. The matter was...
Yes, finally the matter did go to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has taken whatever decision that they choose to take. That's
so the same question for PAC, because PAC also, there were meetings, you were part of it, and the chairperson was there. There were other members also, but did it actually work the way it should have been? Because we have seen that JPC and PC both worked in 2G scam, but there wasn't any result.
Yeah, that's actually, it defeated the entire purpose of a discussion in the PAC and of setting up the JPC, because the PAC report got into all kinds of controversies, and I don't know whether the final report was presented or not. JPC also, the report, there was a report and there was a dissenting report, so we really don't know the status of what happened.
Do you think some other mechanism should be worked out so that justice can be done to CAG reports which unearth such scams?
No, I think the PAC is the best mechanism because it has stood the test of time.
Is it toothless or it needs more power?
No, well, it doesn't require any more power. But I think what has happened is that the PAC is terribly overworked today, because we present 150 odd reports. The PAC barely meets for about 20 times in a year. How many of the reports can it examine, and that too in detail?
Right. Sir, you've mentioned about 3 MPs of PAC. Apparently in one of the interviews you said that they pressurized, although in the book it is not mentioned so. They have refused and denied all such allegations, and they have threatened to sue you. What do you have to say on that?
See, if they decide to sue me, it's a reality I'll have to face.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely conscious about
that.
Mr.
Prafull Patel, this former
that's
civil aviation
for anybody. Anybody, if he decides to choose to sue me, it's a reality I'll have to face, and how I face it, I'll have to decide that at that point of time. But as far as these MPs are concerned, I sincerely believe that they went by whatever the interview seemed to have been put out in the media space. They have not read my book, and I have some extracts from the interview where I've clearly said that I can't recall the names just now, but the Congress MPs who were present in those meetings, but large number of meetings in 2010 and 2011, were Mr. Sanjay Nirupan, Mr. Ashwini Kumar, Mr. Sandeep Dikshit. Now, which of them were telling me to do what, I really can't tell you, because I don't recall at this point of time. Now, you see, in the book also I have not named anybody. What happened was, on 30th November 2010, we made the first presentation of our report. At that time, it was Mr. Ashwini Kumar who told us that let's not drag the Prime Minister into this. Now, there is a background to this also. Why? Because by then the Prime Minister had written to the chairman of the PAC that in case, and I think that was an excellent move on the part of the Prime Minister, he was being very gracious and wanting to be transparent too. He offered to come and clarify things before the PAC. And the discussion which went on in 2010 and again in 2011 till October of 2011, when the other 2 MPs joined the PAC, was whether the Prime Minister should be dragged into this or not. So
you mention as a lawyer MP in the book, which is Mr. Ashwini Kumar.
Yeah, very clearly. Very clearly.
And the other MP, you do not remember who actually told you?
You see, these what I have named in the interview was the Congress MPs who were members of the PAC, as I recall now. As I recall. I also recall that there were other MPs also. Dr. Girija Vyas was there at a later point of time. Mr. Saifuddin Soz was there. Lots of other ministers, MPs were there. But I don't recall, at that point of time I could recall these 3-4 MPs also. also. I specifically recall them because I think sometime in 2010 these two MPs had made some intemperate remarks when in a meeting where I was not present, and the PSC chairman had written to the speaker about these comments.
So this brings in another question, that what gave you so much of strength to actually fight against the establishment? Because I'm sure you must be facing a resistance from the government, because one after another CAG report were coming out, and every month we used to hear that order this. What gave you so much of strength?
See, the strength I derived was actually from the professional capability of the Indian Audit and Accounts Department. I think the auditors in that department, though they are referred to as government auditors, professionally they are absolutely world class. They are totally apolitical. They are not bothered about the repercussions of what their reports are, and to that extent I should say they are not scared of anybody. And since I was so confident about the professional competence of these officers, I was very positive in my mind that issues that they bring out will be very credible issues, and they will be able to stand the test of scrutiny of anybody.
So very important, in page 136 you are referring to big fishes in CWG case, and you have said that I hope that the low-lying officer at a lower level, they are not caught by CBI. Who are these big fishes you are talking about?
I feel very disappointed today. I will really feel very disappointed today that small level officers who have taken decisions at where expenditure was 25 lakhs, 30 lakhs, 1 crore, maybe 5 crores also. Small little bureaucrats, engineers, or whatever it may be, get punished when I can't name any big fish.
So who are these big fishes?
The people who took the policy decisions. The people who took the policy decisions, they were in the DDA, they were in the organizing committee, they were in the government of Delhi, they were in the MCD. Now, these were the people who took decisions at the higher levels. I can't recall those decisions now because there were 17 different agencies working at that point of time.
You mean to say the government, Delhi government also, the top bosses?
The Delhi government officials, the Ministry of Urban Development, the DDA, the organizing committee, on them devolves the responsibility.
You mean to say the Chief Minister also of them?
No, see, the Chief Minister, is the head of the government, as much as I have said separately that the Prime Minister is the head of the national government.
So her involvement was
no. If there is a direct involvement, obviously it will come. But I am not aware in which case her direct involvement can be established.
So, but you never mentioned any of these people in your report, in your CAG report.
No, in the CAG report we have mentioned which decision was taken at which level. We have, but in the book I have not mentioned these people because I don't recall those things now.
So in the coal scam, quickly I want to ask you that the carelessness of the Prime Minister, was it the sole reason that the coal allocation did not happen as per the auction?
No, I don't think you can say. And
because initially the decision was taken for the auction, but later it was changed because of the MOS.
I think it will be very unfair to say it's the carelessness of the Prime Minister, because in all fairness to the Prime Minister, the moment this issue was placed before him, he understood the merit in the argument that screening committee procedure will have to be stopped and auction will have to be continued. And on 1st November 2004 itself he took that decision. But unfortunately he was not holding that portfolio later.
He couldn't convince his
ministers?
That
he couldn't convince his ministers. His ministers took a decision which were different when they came back to power. And it's not, I don't think it's physically possible for any Prime Minister to remember that, look, in this department this decision is pending, that. So I've always maintained that's unfair to put the blame on the Prime Minister, though he is the CEO, he's the head of the government. But it's the systems in the government which were not functioning properly.
So the same question for the civil aviation matter also, in which the approval again came from the Prime Minister. In 6 days' time, it was in the notice of the Finance Minister also. It would have been changed. Do you think the situation would have been changed?
In the civil aviation, it is a slightly different situation. See, the Civil Aviation Ministry espoused the cause of buying 68 planes. Public Investment Board examined it, the Planning Commission examined it, and both of them have not totally recommended the case. In fact, the Ministry of Finance Expenditure Department has gone to the extent that we are not convinced about the model. It's a supply-driven proposal. I think saying that it's a supply-driven proposal itself is a very damaging remark to make. Because they were evidently not convinced how you were going to borrow roughly 30,000 crores and how you would be able to repay that amount.
So my last question and the most important question. You have done fabulous work as during your tenure. You have come out with so many reports, CWG, coal, civil aviation. CBI took over the case and somewhere they took CAG report as their Bible to start the investigation. Has CBI done any justice to any of the investigation so far?
Well, I mean, the very fact that some ministers and some prominent people
in 2G and coal scam, which are Supreme Court monitored, apart from the Supreme Court monitored scam.
This was. Oh, you are talking to me about other things.
Other scam like CWG or even civil aviation case.
CWG, CBI is certainly prosecuting some people. Civil aviation, I don't think they've launched any prosecution that I can recall immediately.
Right.
I can recall immediately because I don't think any criminal culpability has been established in anything.
So, in other cases, you feel that some action has been taken by CBI?
In 2G and coal, they have. I mean, they were the ones who launched the prosecution.
Because of the Supreme Court monitoring somewhere?
No, Supreme Court started monitoring it later.
Yeah.
They had launched the prosecution much earlier.
Sir, thank you, sir. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you very much. It was nice.